Healing with Human Connection, where we have encouraging conversations about tough topics such as substance abuse, drug addiction, and mental health issues for those in the Northwest Indiana area. Our hope is to share information that will guide you to resources that can help you change your life so that you can live the life you were meant to live. Check out our website, www.healingwithconnection.com, to find a full transcript of today's conversation, along with a list of any resources or links mentioned in this episode. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to Healing with Human Connection. We are so excited today. I'm Jeanne Cannon. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, and a life coach. And we have Stacey Garcelon with Anam Kara. It is a fabulous counseling group.
It's Gaelic. You'll have to learn
Is
Gaelic.
it?
Yes.
There you go. Wait, seriously, is it?
Yes.
Anam? So tell me, what does that mean?
Is Gaelic. Literally translated means soul friend.
Soul friend.
Yes.
Oh, good.
So the Irish have a belief that everyone has at least one soul friend which journeys with you on a path of self-discovery without any judgment or advice.
Oh, well, now I'm really gonna get it right.
That's why we have to go on Saturday. They have the horse healing.
Very cool.
The herd meditation.
Yes.
We're having our herd meditation on the fourth Saturday of each month and a women's group on the third Saturday of each month.
Yay. And tell us a little, what is herd meditation for those who don't know?
A herd meditation is an opportunity to partner with horses and experience the healing presence of the horse while also spending some time going internally and meditating and reflecting. And it's a walking meditation, a silent walking meditation.
Wonderful, Stacey. Kara. It's a beautiful, beautiful name, and a beautiful therapist, and a beautiful counseling group that does all kinds of innovative things. So, and we have Lisa Scheller, who is our in-house author. She is just outstanding and a health recovery coach. Tell us what's happening with the book.
It's called From Fear to Faith, and it's our family journey about addiction, recovery, and grace. The whole idea behind the book is to let people know we were there once. 10, 15 years ago. It was a journey. It wasn't an easy fix. But I learned that there are so many more resources out there that can help people. They don't need to feel stuck. And there's a community of people that just really want to help people get to that next level. And sometimes we don't know that. We only know what we know and lived it. I thought everybody lived like this. Not everybody does. And I don't have to be that person that continues down my road like this in my life. That's why we have Hannah here today, because it was quite the journey for us.
So excited to have Hannah Scheller, Lisa's daughter, who's here to talk about some really great things about recovery and being in a family when someone is addicted to alcohol and what that's like and how we can better understand it. I'm so grateful you're here, Hannah.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome, because as we have all personally and professionally worked in the field of recovery on one way or another, we want to bring to you people who help us understand as listeners how we can help. Whether you listening have an issue that you're challenged with, or a loved one or a friend, you know, what is a problem? Oftentimes it's like, oh, do I really need help? Do I not need help? And what kind of help is out there? And finding help, as we all know, is quite a journey to navigate. So Hannah, again, thank you for coming. I know you're very busy, girl, with all kinds of things. We're going to talk about, as your mom said, a little bit about what it's like to be in a family where there's someone who has the challenge, if you would, of a drinking issue. So before we get into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and what you're doing now?
So I just graduated from college in May. Yes, I'm so excited, and from Valparaiso University, and with my degree in elementary education. And so I will be teaching in the fall. I'm just getting my classroom ready right now, and I'm super excited to teach kindergarten and for that new experience that I've been looking forward to for a long time, like a very long time. Because I've known I want to be a teacher.
Able to tell us.
Yes, yeah. I've known I wanted to be a teacher since I was like in first grade. So that's what I'm doing right now. And in that transition, it's weird when you graduate from college, and then especially for teachers, I feel like we were just talking about this with one of my friends. Like a lot of our friends start their job like a few weeks after they graduate, and then it's like teachers you have all summer, and you're
Right.
like, we're employed, but like not really, because we're
Right.
not working. But yeah, so
Right.
it's kind of a
Yeah.
it's a good summer. It's kind of
Well,
a little bit
you know,
slower than normal.
Right. And the transition of, and it's that what we're going to talk about today is transition. So tell us a little bit about the history of alcoholism in your family.
Yes. So my dad is an alcoholic, and we kind of growing up, I am the oldest, and I think that that's kind of important. I think that there is something about being the oldest, and I was kind of more in tune. I'm just a few years older than my sister, but I kind of was more in tune with things. She kind of our personalities too.
Yeah.
And so we kind of found out, I kind of knew that there was something going on when they would start arguing over things, and I kind of figured it out. And that was when I was like 7 or 8, but it didn't really fully, what would you say?
Yep.
Escalate until I was probably like 10 or 11, and that's when it was really bad. And he would drink sneakily, so like we wouldn't know that he was drinking was part of it. And he would, it was vodka, and he would just put it in like water bottles, and so like we wouldn't really know. Like he would just drink out of water bottles. But my mom was like, sometimes make sure like if you ever drink a water bottle, like if it smells, don't drink it. Like she would tell us that. Like she was just like, it was just, we kind of knew something was going on. And so they would get into fights more, and then a lot of times he would end up leaving just because he wanted to get away from it, because my mom would be upset, obviously, that he was drinking and that he was drunk. And he would check him. And one of the first times that we kind of figured it out too, I just remember this, was he went away. He checked himself into a rehab center. Yes. And
It was a detox center.
yes, and that's what kind of when you knew that it was,
More
knew it was-
serious.
yeah, more serious, because my mom was like, well, like, why do you have to go there? Like, she just didn't really understand, like, and we didn't really understand where he was at. It was only for a few days, right?
It's about a week, 10 days.
Oh, okay. And I thought it was shorter than that. I guess when you're younger, you don't
Yeah,
think
right.
it's that long.
Time.
Yeah. And so he went to, that was the first of many rehab centers, and we were moving all over, and mom was working a lot, and he would work, but then it would change. It was kind of, he'd fluctuate between jobs, and sometimes he'd be sober for a few months, and then he'd relapse when it was stress was a really big trigger. And when things would get stressed, when either my mom would get stressed out, and then he could kind of feel that stress, or just different situations where he felt stressed. And we did move a lot, so I think that could to like put a lot of stress on him, contribute to it. And my mom just started educating us though, from like, and dad, we would talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like it was very open. Like my mom would be like, she'd share stuff with us that we needed to know, but she wanted to educate us on like, this is a disease, like it's hereditary, like it runs in your family, and just making us aware too that it is in our family, so like we could like have it, or like our kids could have it, or
Sure.
like just like being
Right.
aware.
Little red flag.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how to deal with this. We had a lot of open conversations, I feel like, about it growing up, which was really helpful. And so finally, in 2014, was it? Yes, 2014, my dad left one morning when my mom was in the shower when we were living with some friends at the time, Delaney and I. It was just my freshman year of high school. I was so excited. First, we were going to move back to Minnesota to live near my mom's family, because my dad's family is not, they're from here, but they no longer alive, so there's not a lot of family here. So my mom's like, we need to go back to Minnesota, and then she went there, and then she left us here with my dad, and that did not go well, because my dad was stressed because he was left alone with this. And I was like, Mom, you have to come back. And plus, I was in show choir in high school, and I went to my camp for the first time, and I was like, I'm not leaving this school. And my mom was like, okay, so I guess we're not moving back to Minnesota. And my mom's like, okay, I guess I got to come home and take care of this. So then we stayed here, which I'm glad we did. And that's when Dad's drinking got even worse, and he left, took our only car, and headed south. We didn't know. He left his phone, keys, wallet, everything at home, and left. And so he was gone for 10 days, and we did not know where he was or had any contact with him. And so that was really scary. And I actually went to a church retreat that next weekend. It was just really crazy. Went to this church retreat, and
For teenagers.
yeah, for teenagers. And so he'd been gone, I think like a week at this point, or maybe it was like 8 days. And then while I was there, like I remember like praying about it. And then the next morning, one of our friends from church, she came in and said that my dad had been found in a hospital. And so that was like a really
Terrifying.
yeah. But we didn't know, and my mom just kept saying like, we don't know where he's at, but like we just keep praying that like it's gonna work out. And like she just kept saying that. Like I don't know how she just kept saying that. Like she had to be scared too. And yeah, by the grace of God, God definitely had other plans for my dad. He was not going anywhere. And so he now is coaching recovery, and he works with other addicts and helps them through counseling. And so yeah, it was very rough though for a good 8 years there. And so yeah, it was not easy. It was we walked on eggshells a lot of times because we didn't really know what we came home to, kind of, and if mom would be upset that he'd been drinking or if he would be drinking. And yeah, I remember though as a child too, like I think as an oldest, like I took a lot of responsibility too, because my mom would be working or like doing other things, and like we couldn't always
keep everything together.
And like I remember one time, like I went into the bathroom and like I pulled out a drawer and I just found this bottle of vodka and I just dumped it down the sink and then just threw it away. And like I didn't even tell my parent, like my mom or my dad, like I just threw it away. Like, and those are things like you just don't really
know what to do.
Yeah, like, but I'm like, okay, like I guess I just got to take care of it. And not that my sister wouldn't, but I don't think that she'd just be like, oh, like she probably can tell us, but like I just was like, I'm just gonna get rid of it. I don't want to start an argument. Like I don't, because then if I told my mom, she would be upset with my dad. So I'm like, I'm just not gonna start an argument, but I know that I can get rid of it.
Right. Like, so interesting, Hannah, when you talk about, how do you deal, well, two things very interesting. First of all, I just want to say, we're sorry that was a lot for a long time.
Right.
But what a beautiful family you have.
Yes.
And your dad is a beautiful person, and you are beautiful people emotionally and otherwise. And we're thrilled for you that you were able to navigate through it. Some people don't navigate through it, as we all know. So kudos to you, Lisa. Kudos to you, Hannah. But I think it's very interesting to think about a couple things. One, in the moment it's happening and it's all so new, we don't know what to do.
Right.
And number two, how different you and your sister are. The roles we play.
Yes.
It sounds like, Lisa, you were just busy trying to keep the family together and make everything work.
Yes.
And you, Hannah, took an interesting role, very different than your sister.
Yes.
And how was that?
I think too, because she's younger too, and so we just kind of like I knew that things needed to be done, and so we would just like I would just do it. Like I was older, I would just be like, okay, so like we have to get ready, or we have to do this, or I would just help with different things and kind of took that role. And I think she knew too what was going on, but like at the same time we're 27 months apart, so we're like 2 years in school, and so she is younger than me.
Sure.
And she, even though we're kind of like we are 2 years apart, I think though since we were growing up, like she just like we were changing our minds, kind of were changing. Like she wasn't quite at the maturity that I was at, just because she's 2 years younger than me. And so when everything was happening, it didn't really, and I would express like how I was feeling too, and she wouldn't really express how she was feeling, and she kind of kept it all in and stuff. So it is really interesting how we play those different roles and but she was very calm, and like she would, like it would be more sensitive to her, but we kind of bubbled each other out, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were also surrounded by a village of people.
Yes.
Who were there to help you.
That's very true.
God just put those people in our lives.
Yes. To help us work through things too, and like there would be, and you don't really know who else is going through it. Like when you're going through it, you just think that for a little bit, you like mom would just be like, oh no, we can handle this. Like why do you have to go to rehab? And I think that is your first initial reaction, because like you don't want other people to know about it.
You're in denial.
Yeah, you're in denial that it's happening.
That's associated
Yes.
with it. This shame.
Which there shouldn't be. And I think that a lot of times people who don't know like addiction, like it is a disease. Like people are born with it. It's not just like they're like, okay, I'm gonna become an addict. Like that's not how it is. Like that's just not how it is. Like and people are like, why don't you just stop? But like it's really like it's a mental, it's emotional. There's a lot of other things that go into it, and people don't realize that. And so that's I think the shame that comes around it, because people don't get it. Like they just don't know.
Right.
Unless.
Right. They talk about the three, that it's emotional, it's physical addiction.
For sure.
And it's also spiritual. Spiritual being life purpose. What's your role in life?
Yes.
I mean, could you imagine how lost your dad must have felt to leave the family and end up in a hospital? I mean, how desperately lost.
Yeah.
So that's the spirituality of what is my role in life. But how about, can you talk a little bit, Hannah, to anyone listening, being an adult or a younger person, what would you want them to know, or what would you have done differently, or how if you're in listening and you're having this somewhat, not the exact same, but problematic someone at home, what would you say to them?
I would say that there is hope because I didn't feel that way too. It feels dark a lot of times. You don't feel like anyone else really understands what you're going through because people don't talk about it and they don't want other people to know what's going on, or they feel sometimes too you can feel like a burden. I feel like people don't, or they don't understand it. So if you're going to talk about it, they don't really get it, or what are they going to say? And
They're scared.
Yes, that too. Yes,
I think
people
people
for
freak
sure.
out oh God, that's going on in my home. I don't want to talk about it.
Right. And I think that people need to know that there's hope out there. There's help too. There's other people that are going through it or have gone through it, and talking to other people, whether that be someone that you trust or even a therapist, I think is really important because, or someone at your church, a teacher, someone that you trust.
There you go.
That's because keeping it all into is not very good. It can build up, and I think that it can come out in other ways too. Maybe you're not the one with addiction, but other things can happen too.
Yeah.
And so letting people know that they're not alone and that there is hope and that they can get help.
Yeah. So as far as, you had a mom who was very open in discussing it all. If you don't have that and a family is, as you say, isolated or scared or ashamed, what does a young person do? So you said, talk to maybe your school counselor or a teacher or a neighbor or someone at church, or even begin reading about it. Kids are great with Googling and, to understand it's not your fault.
Yes.
Number one, it wasn't your mom's fault.
Right. And I think that I think that you too, not that you didn't, maybe you did feel it was your fault, but I felt too, I wouldn't want to get upset. I wouldn't want to make anyone upset because I didn't want there to be any arguments, or I didn't want there to be any reason for him to, not that he wouldn't say that we caused it, but you just felt that stress was his trigger. So if you were to make him feel stressed out, then
might make it worse.
That would be a trigger for him. Yeah. And so
so that might keep you from talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting, conflict. Some people are so afraid of conflict or talking about difficult topics.
Yes.
What would you say about that social stigma about, still to this day, the social stigma of talking about alcoholism with young people or drug addiction? A friend who's addicted to drug or a family member. What would you say about that?
Yeah, there is still a stigma for sure, yeah. And I think though too, if you open up about it, there are people that are going through it. There are a lot of people that you don't realize, your friends. I have a good friend and her dad was an alcoholic, and you don't really realize that until you start talking about it. If I wouldn't have brought it up, or if she wouldn't have brought it up, then we wouldn't have known. And unless it is very vulnerable and to talk about it, and maybe not publicly speaking about it like this or anything like that, but talking with someone that you trust, and that there are other, or maybe one friend or someone else knows someone who may be going through that too, and that they can connect you together and kind of see what has worked, what are some coping things for them, or what has helped for them, or different things that they go through. And I think that if you're talking about it, it helps release a lot of it too. And it may not fix it right now, but it helps you feel okay, so I talked about it. Yes, and I'm not the only
So
one.
isolated.
Yes.
Have some support.
Right.
Someone else that's been there.
Yes. And if you're talking, there are I feel everyone, now that we talk about it, people are oh yeah, my brother or my dad or my mom or my aunt or something grandma or grandpa was an addict, and so there is a lot of stigma around it. But I think that don't be afraid to talk about it with other people and share your story too with people that you trust.
When you were going through this and you felt all alone and you felt hey, where do I turn, or it's all right here, and you had your outlets at school. But then the people that you met after that, the one girl that lived with us for a period of time, one of your friends who was going through that with her mom, and then you went to college and you met somebody that didn't know your story until they went to camp with you, and you lived with them for 3 months, and she looked at you and said, that's my story. So you don't know that story until you share it, because now that makes her feel that she can talk about it. And then your friend whose mom passed away, at least she knows that you're there and you have something in common.
Right. Yeah. Yes, for sure. So yeah, talking about it, and even though it's hard, I think that, or even starting a journal if you don't want to talk about it, I think that I wish I would have had a journal.
Yeah.
I think it would have been painful, but I
great.
think that it definitely would have been painful, but at the same time, I think that it would have helped me too, because I could have wrote it down, and then I didn't really have to talk about it. Or even my sister, I think that it would have been good if like she had a journal going through it too, because she didn't really like to talk. I mean, she would talk about it, but not. She kept a lot
She
of
kept
things.
under,
under her hat, you would say, even though.
yeah, that's what I always said, that
Okay.
did she really know that?
Yeah.
And then she'd come back and
She
go, Mom,
would
I
know.
heard, because she
and
was
young,
just
but you
soaked in
didn't
it.
know. Yeah.
And I think that was what the healing part about writing the book was.
Yes, writing it
I
down.
didn't journal while I was going through it, and then when we wrote the book and I was writing about these situations or looking back at these situations, then now when I read it, I go, who went through that?
Yeah.
You know, like, and it does happen, and you just realize that just with faith and surround yourself with a village, get the help that you need, that you can come out on the other side.
Yes, for sure.
So Lisa, you're saying, the shame and getting over it and journaling.
I would highly recommend writing it down. Journaling, writing it down, I think that's healing, as well as talking about it, and coming. And since we've been doing this, and we had our first episode came out, and we put it out on Facebook, I've had a couple of people reach out to me and said, I want to share my story with you. And so we know now that this is working, because it's going to bring people to the light to say, hey, I don't have to keep this, and one of the ladies that I met with, she said, when I was going through this up in Chicago, they had a big network of people. Then I moved here, and there's not as much of a network, so I'm trying to find my group. I'm trying to find my people. And so if we can just keep this out in the forefront and letting people know there are connections, no judgment, we just want to meet you where you're at, and however we can help navigate you through whatever you have to deal with.
Yeah, I definitely think writing it down too, because when I was reading the book back, I'm like, that really happened, because you put things away.
Oh my
like
gosh, right.
Like my mom was I was reading it and I was like, oh, there's a car accident. Like I forgot that happened. Like I really did, and I was like, oh my gosh, like because you put things out of your brain that you don't
To
want there
people.
anymore, and but at the same time, like reading that back and like realizing everything that like really did happen, because I did know it was a lot, but then going through everything was very healing. Like it was very. Yeah.
It's a gift you can give your future self.
Right.
Because you can look back and go, oh, I came through all
Right.
that.
Right.
Like I have this inner resiliency that I wasn't aware
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much. I'm sure that's been so helpful to so many people. Is there any last words that you would want to say to anyone listening?
I would just say that there is hope, and talk to someone or start journaling. There is resources available to help you, just so that you know that there are people out there and there's support as you're going through things like this.
And thank you, Hannah. And just so you know, I mean, the Schellers, you don't find a more beautiful family, and Hans is a wonderful person and a beautiful man, and the life on the other side could be really wonderful.
Yes.
Not that it's perfect.
Right.
But, and I do want to say that, just because we went through this, and that's our story, life is not perfect. Like we still have our ups and downs. We're still trying to figure out where our spots are with things. Life is ever changing. Hannah graduated from college. She moved out. She's getting her big girl job. As like me as a mom going, oh my gosh, So I'm just,
Right.
Everything is always changing. So I just want to tell people, just like Hannah said, reach out.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Thank
That's
you
great.
so much,
Yeah.
Hannah. What a delight to give you here.
Thank you.
And as Hannah said, there's always hope. Thank you for joining us today. Be very, very kind to yourself. That is really where the power is, when we're compassionate to ourselves, and then we can be healthier people and make it a healthier world. Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, let us know by leaving a comment or review and sharing with a friend. All resources mentioned today and a full transcript of this episode can be found by going to our website, www.healingwithconnection.com. A video of this recording can be found on our YouTube channel, and the audio podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Healing with Connection is a collaborative project created by Lisa Scheller, Jeanne and Stacey Garcelon, produced and edited by Megan Swartz.